White reparations. Exactly what is white reparations? Well, my estimate, there can be no white reparations until you have black reparations. So we here to talk about it all right here on the next Blac-Vocracy. So buckle up, let's go. Welcome to another edition of Blac-Vocracy. I'm your host, Jabril A. Rashad. I'm streaming to you live over the airways of YouTube and Facebook. And I want you all to hit the subscribe, like, share, and notification button for me as we continue to grow the channel. So I want to talk about this white reparations and just reparations in general, because a lot has been said recently in light of the speech of incoming President Donald J. Trump. And just like I kind of predicted on the left, here we go with the fear mongering, talking about white reparations. Well, how can there be white reparations when there haven't been any black reparations? Because you see, reparations for African Americans in this country at times have been a very much talked about subject matter amongst politicians, higher learning institutions, and even your local barbershops. And however, it's this type of debate that has a far less reaching effect amongst those living in the African American community a lot of times. But, you know, perhaps the very thought of the United States Treasury Department having to balance the books, so to speak, it's like a Leviathan type task to be able to do that if you're talking about balancing the books to pay out very large amounts of indemnified checks, if you will, cashier's checks, or just sending it right to your bank account in the African American community. I'm quite sure it sends chills down their spine because I think that they know, truthfully, they know that any reparations made towards slavery, convict leasing, lynching, Jim Crow, all the laws that were set into place, it'll basically bankrupt this country. Yeah, if you're talking about trying to mainstream and indemnify and rewrite a wrong, it'll definitely bankrupt this country if it doesn't collapse it all together. Nevertheless, I still believe that the check must be cut. You can't have a white reparations before you have a black reparations, which is the reason why I find this hilarious statement comical, very comical. White reparations. And a lot of that was sparked by the recent speech again that Donald J. Trump gave regarding education. Now, I'm gonna play the clip for those of you who may not have seen it or been aware of it. I'm gonna play the clip and I want you to just examine for yourself and listen very carefully. Just listen. Remove your emotions out of it. Park that on the sideline and just listen. And listen very closely without anyone else interpretation. And you tell me, do you hear anything coming out that this would be towards white privilege or white reparations? Play the tape.
And teachers, and also to fire the poor ones, the one whose performance is unsatisfactory. They will be fired. Like on The Apprentice, you're fired. Third, we will ensure our classrooms are focused not on political indoctrination, but on teaching the knowledge and skills needed to succeed. Reading, writing, math, science, arithmetic, and other truly useful subjects. Fourth, we will teach students to love their country, not to hate their country like they're taught right now. Fifth, we will support bringing back prayer to our schools. Sixth, we will achieve schools that are safe, secure, and drug-free, with immediate expulsion for any student who harms a teacher or another student. Seventh, we will give all parents the right to choose another school for their children if they want. It's called school choice. Eighth, we will ensure students have access to project-based learning experiences inside the classroom to help train them for meaningful work outside the classroom. Ninth, we will strive to give all students access to internships and work experiences that can set them on a path to their first job. They're going to be very, very successful. I want them to be more successful than Trump. Let them go out and be more successful. I will be the happiest person in the world. But we want our children to have a great life and be successful. And 10th, we will ensure that all schools provide excellent jobs and career counseling so that high school and college students can get a head start on jobs and careers best suited to their God-given talents. This is how we will ensure a great education for every American child. And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it. You can't do worse. We spend more money per pupil by 3 times than any other nation, and yet we're absolutely at the bottom. We're one of the worst. So you can't do worse. We're going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up, all those buildings all over the place, and you have people that in many cases hate our children. We're going to send it all back to the states. Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's re-examine the speech. Because unless I got cotton in my ears, I didn't hear not one word about white reparations. Now, let me give you a brief example. If you have a predisposed disposition, or you suffer from the theory of cognitive dissonance, where you have a lack of disagreement because it's based on maybe my skin color or my ethnicity or my historical background, whatever that may be, nothing I say will convince you to change your perception. Those are just the facts. But we have to have what is called equity, fairness. Because what I heard Donald Trump say, he mentioned all American children. All. Now, I don't know your definition of the word all, but when I hear all, it means everything that's inclusive. If you are an American and your child or you was born in America or you naturalized into America, then he is also including you. But see, here's the problem, as I see it. Some of us just don't like the man. Let's just call it what it is. Some of us just don't like the man. Kind of like when you go into the supermarket and you're going down the aisle and you see some bananas, some pears, some apples, or whatever the case may be. There may be something you like and something that you don't like. And no matter what someone else says, trying to convince you to get the bananas, you still take the apples or maybe the pears because you just don't like the bananas. I get it. And if that's what it is, say that's what it is. But do not, please do not try to blind those of us who recognize corporate plantation, or should I say modern day plantation, wrapped up in the form of colorization, as they say, colorization. Because everything is not always about black and white. It does get murky sometimes. Yes, we would like to be transparent. Yes, we would like to make it clear, you know, black and white. But it does get murky at times. The thing about this whole situation Trump is speaking about is about education. I understand it. I get it. If he feels as though that the Department of Justice, excuse me, not the Department of Justice, but the Department of Education have been funneling money down to the state levels to these higher learning institutions. And when you're looking outside in society into the classrooms, we don't necessarily see the benefit. We don't necessarily see the benefit anymore. There was a time when we did, when America was #1 in everything. Now all you have to do is run the numbers. Go look at the numbers. Google the numbers. We rank 16th in math, 34th in science. You start talking about math and science, those two things go together. Mathematics and science goes together. We are born with a number and we will exit this life with a number. So those two things go together. So when you're talking about, even on a social level, how these young people are destroying the classrooms, snatching teachers' wigs off the top of their head, disrespecting a teacher. You know, not too long ago, it wasn't even, I think, 7 days into the school year, and a teacher got her eye put out down in Corsicana, Texas. Yeah, she's been in education for nearly 28 years, probably close to retirement. And you tell me she has to have eye surgery, possibly going blind in one eye, losing an eye, because a student wants to take some type of wooden stick of a clothes hanger and hit this teacher in the eye with. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a moment, in a time when there was so much respect for our teachers, for our principals, for our faculty staff. You know, not too long ago, a friend of mine went up to, I'm just going to say, a high school, okay? And we was pitching this business concept on career day. And we spent 2 days straight pitching this concept, having to do with Sports Business Institute. We noticed there were students that was on their cell phones. One classroom, I even walked by and they was actually eating food, like takeout, in the classroom. There is absolutely no way when I was growing up that you would be enjoying McDonald's or Burger King or Sweet Georgia Brown inside of a classroom. Just no way, with the door wide open. So what are we talking about? Why? Is it because Donald Trump is actually saying it? Or are we just refusing to see what needs to be done in our educational system? Numbers don't lie, people. The numbers just don't lie. And I think that it's insulting to make this thing about race, white reparations. Again, you can't have white reparations before you have black reparations. We understand that the United States government gave reparations to the Native Americans. We understand that the United States of America gave reparations to the Japanese. And we understand that the United States have given reparations to other groups that are out there, but have yet to answer the call of African American people. No one is making light of that. And in fact, I think California is the state that really took a real look at that on the state level. But how do you do that when we still suffering from identity crisis, number one? Number two, a lack of a financial literacy education. Because as I already said, we are the biggest consumers out of any group of people in this country because we still continue to finance our own oppression. This idea or concept of reparation, I think, is a beautiful thing. Absolutely. You know, the idea behind reparations, which many people started. I think it started first and foremost from a female former slave, well, actually slave name, I should say, Miss Callie House. Miss Callie House. I think she was the first one to petition the United States government for relief and pensions to help former slaves. However, Miss House was immediately shut down after being illegally charged by the U.S. Attorney General for mail fraud. And y'all know that was fraud for them to even charge Miss Callie House. And who was, by the way, yes, she was a former female slave, but charge her with mail fraud because this was an ideology that they did not want out there. Yes, so it is time to balance the books. We have not been justly nor fairly compensated when it comes to reparations. However, I do believe that later she was handed a 1-year sentence after being accused of trying to defraud people by, you know, trying to have this asserted that we need to be compensated for that free labor that we gave. And we still feel this way. And there are different, I think it's like 3 to 5 different types of reparations. You know, there could be restitution. There could be a land given. That's another way to indemnify this hurt. You know, there could be certain guarantees. You know, so there are ways to get this thing done in terms of reparations. But again, when you're trying to balance the books, to rewrite the wrongs of the United States of America against African American people in the form of children of the former slaves, it will basically leave them in the bankruptcy that they are in. Because right now, all they do is print up nice bonds and treasury notes and IOUs and package them up and sell them off to foreign countries like China, who becomes our trade partner. And then we receive all of their goods and services while they get our funny money called fiat currency. That's just what it is. I'm just telling you what it is. But again, to make this thing a white and black issue, I don't think at all that this is what it is. Because again, he's being all inclusive. Now, there are those of us who want to continue to push African Americans on the plantation. Man, how I wish that some of you all would have left with Harriet Tubman, but you just had to be on Master's plantation. I don't know why we leaving Master. He's been good to us. He feeds us. He clothes us. He gives us water to drink. Harriet Tubman's situation was about exiting the plantation life, following the North Star, heading north, not south. They was already in the South. She's trying to go north. Because why? Because we understand that the South were the Confederate States. They were the party of racism, the Democrats. They was a party who wanted to continue to have slave holdings. They were the party who denied Dr. L.A. Nixon out of El Paso, Texas in 1926 the right to vote Democratic until he took it to the NAACP and won his case by the Supreme Court, but yet he wound up voting Republic. The Democrats. You couldn't vote in the state of Texas. You couldn't vote in the state of Missouri. You couldn't vote in the state of Georgia, Tennessee, the southern states. These were slave states ran by the Democrats. And you want to know why Thomas Nash in 1876 gave you all the donkey. All you got to do is just study the nature of the donkey. And who loves the donkey more than anybody? African American people. Oh, come on, Jabril, why you say that? Well, who loves them some Jesus? Who is the people who say you can have the world, just give me Jesus? I've been in interfaith. They don't say this over at some of the, those rich, affluent, like over in Highland Park in Dallas, Texas. They don't teach that. They teach that Jesus gave life and gave it more abundantly. But the African American community teach you can have the world, just give me Jesus. So they gave him to you, symbolically speaking, and gave him on a donkey. Because did he not ride the donkey into Jerusalem? He did. So if you can connect with that emotionally, because the donkey is a stubborn, emotional animal. He does nothing but braze. You almost got to hit him with a 2x4 to get him moving. But now look at the Republican Party. They drew up the elephant. Very smart, thinking creature. Thinking creature. You think this is just by chance? Do you actually think that this is just by chance that they will put up these two symbols, recognizing the disposition of each party? Yeah, and I'm not just talking about, and I forget the gentleman's name. I wished I could name the book right now. It's not coming to me, but he wrote a very scholarly book that identified how Southern blacks versus Northern blacks spoke two different languages. And we know that today because let's go to any New York city and start speaking with a drawl. Y'all, pecan, not pecan. Yeah. You say they talk proper, they say we talk country. I've been around the country, so I've heard the dialect. Where they say we really assimilated with the former slaveholders back in the South, which is one of the reasons why we picked up the Southern languages. And language is so important. It is so important. I don't have time for this particular episode to even go into when we start talking about languages and how we really are made up of words, and we identify ourselves by words in the abstract first, not second, first, because you can hear my words, but you can't see my words. My words are first and foremost internalized. Then I make them ready, available when I externalize. So we got to get a better understanding, a clearer understanding of what's being said. Because again, you can't have white reparations before you have black reparations. And again, the thing that Donald Trump talked about, it's no new concept, a new idea. How do we know? I'm going to play you a clip in just a second. Sound almost just like Donald Trump. The only one exception is he's an African American. Let me play this clip. Give me just a moment here. Have a little second. Let me get. Like I don't want to refuse to play. I get it up here. Here we go.
The big gold cross, the big cars. You can't have a race predicated upon athletes and singers and dancers. You have to begin to revere and respect the Dr. Kings, the Benjamin Hooks, the Jesse Jacksons. Alas, yes, the Joe Clarks.
Now, for those of you all who don't remember Joe Clark, let me give you a little bit of background. Joe Clark is the gentleman whom they made the movie Lean on Me, starring my guy, y'all help me out, Morgan Freeman, who played the principal, Joe Clark. And he was walking around with the megaphone and the bat. Some even nicknamed him Batman. And many people thought he was using the bat against the drug dealers and maybe even on some of his students, but the bat was just used as a metaphor, where he stated to the young students, when you get your turn standing inside the batter's box, what are you going to do? Are you going to ground out, or are you going to hit a home run? So he walked around with this bat, or carried this bat. But Joe Clark was talking about some of the very thing that Donald Trump is advancing, or wanting to advance now in terms of education. It's time that we quit making excuses for the very thing that God has already put it encoded in our nature to do for ourselves. We keep blaming the white man, the white man, the white man this, the white man that, and feeling entitled. I've been on both sides of the equations. And I really came into this reality years ago, but I kept standing in the Kool-Aid line. And it wasn't until around 2010 when I finally had my personal experience with the Democratic Party. I share a little bit of that with you all on my last episode, how I wrote the late Congresswoman Ada Bernice Johnson off, as well as Al Sharpton, when I was fighting my case, all the way up to the Supreme Court. No help, no nothing, nothing. So we have to continue to step out on faith, which is one of the reasons why I named this particular episode right here, White Reparations, but God is still in control. God is still in control. The problem with us, we still think that man is in control, many of us. Nothing, absolutely nothing can happen to us or go wrong unless God decrees it. If God decreed it, then it was in his divine plan. And this is all predestined. It's preordained that we was going to get to it regardless. So I don't even worry about it. I just need to understand the policies that are in place, starting with the money policies, the economic policies. First and foremost, what am I supposed to do when I'm trying to create generational wealth and self-preservation, then do something for my community? What am I supposed to do? I'm fond of always saying that poor people don't create jobs, do they? That's just a yes or no. Do poor people create jobs? They don't. In case you want to play around with that, they don't. They don't create jobs. So you think you're going to continue to tax the rich? But here's the funny thing: God never says who can be poor or rich. God never says who can be poor or rich. Show me that. Show me where that is in any scripture, where He identifies the rich or the poor based on their skin color. No, God rewards effort. Now, have we been behind the 8 ball, so to speak? Yes, we have. Have the field been leveled? No, it hasn't. Have we started and got out of the blocks of circumstances? Absolutely. But God still rewards effort. You know how I know? Because I think about the Madam C.J. Walkers. You know, I think about those brothers and sisters, you know, even when you start talking about the Glanville waiters and all of the science and the mathematicians that we had, the Dr. Charles Drew, individuals who started their own banks, O.W. Hurley, you know, Black Wall Street, those who just, you know, hadn't too long come out of the Emancipation Proclamation, and right before we go into another 100 years of Jim Crowism. I got a book called Blac-Fortunes, and they showing African American people with fur coats on standing by Ford T-model cars. And I'm asking myself then, with all of the oppression and depression taking place, how did they succeed in such dark times and moments? How did they break the psychology change from the ghost of the plantation life to become millionaires in that time? I think when I look at those brothers and sisters who was afforded an opportunity, maybe it may not have been a whole bunch of opportunity, but it was a little bit, and they took advantage of it. And now, fast forward in 2024, we just have absolutely no excuses. But if you all want to continue to play the blame game, colorization, entitlement, be my guest. Be my guest. But I stated before, I'd rather take my own money, devote it into my community, do my charitable work as I've always tried to do. See, many of y'all don't even recognize when me and a business partner of mine had a record label, independent record label back in the mid to late 90s. You know, we used to put games together with K104 as well as basketball games. And we would perform these games and we would get the proceeds back to the Boys and Girls Club. This is back in the 90s. I got videos of the stuff that we would do, you know, every Wednesday night. Every Wednesday night, we had the original Ladies Night Out when we had the independent record label. We had the Hard Rock Cafe. So I've learned to get mine out of the mud, symbolically speaking. I'm talking about the soil, the soil, the men, the soil of the earth, because we're from the earth, right? We're out of the industrial class, industrialism. That's how America was first built, long before technology and all this other stuff. We're talking industries now, where we're supposed to industry. That's what the word is when you break it down. These are insights of Imam Wadathuddin Muhammad. I don't want to take any credit for that. But when he looked at the word industrial, Adam was created from dust. And as we say, from ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So from a commercial aspect, corporation aspect, we are supposed to be getting something out of the ground. That's why they use this word, or this in their vernacular, they say, I built this from the ground up. Well, what are they saying? In, dust, try. INDUSTRY, in, dust, try. Industry. Industrial. Try something. Don't hold yourself captive. Don't fall into the minority state of mind that you can't be something greater than what you already are. I said, you know, months ago that God created us out of the most excellent mold. So you mean to tell me you're going to see yourself as minor, as a minority, or would you see yourself being major, in the majority? See, I'm going to take my rightful seat at the table. And in the words of our late great brother Malcolm X, he said, sitting at the dining table with not anything to eat on your plate does not necessarily make you a diner. If you're just showing up with an appetite, you don't have nothing to bring on the table of humanity except an appetite, then you're not a diner. And in another words of our great Bishop Desmond Tutu, who said he don't want to accept the crumbs from the table. He don't want to accept the crumbs from the table. So again, we're not going to just accept anything. I want to take my rightful place at the seat of the table and be able to talk business with some of the most greatest economic minds there is. And what I don't know, I believe and trust the Most High God that I will know once the dinner is over with. Because I try to pride myself on trafficking information, being a thinker independently, and listening and incorporating the ideals that are going to advance my life and not cripple my life. Far too many of us are still too emotional to understand a lot of what I'm saying. We're connecting ourselves on an emotional level when God didn't create us out of to be emotional. He created us in the rational spirit of things, to be able to think, the ability to reason, to discern, and to think. Think. For thinking is one of the greatest tools we have. Don't allow someone to interpret or formulate an opinion or give you an opinion. We got to think, reserve our right to think. We have to reserve our right to think. But again, if you listen to this media machine and those who are still trying to perpetuate this, the Roland Martins. I heard Roland Martin today with his guest that was on there. I can't think of the gentleman's name, but I'm saying to myself, are these two individuals, did they get off the short bus? I mean, no, seriously. Did they get off the short bus? Because I'm saying, man, listen, I understand you got to have numbers. You got to keep your numbers up. You got to be able to get your YouTube check or whatever the case may be, whatever you got going on. But by all means, don't be that stupid. Don't continue to try to saturate our thinking and play us weak like that. Man, I'm going to be Jabril, I was Jabril before I, ever heard of a Donald Trump, and I'm going to be Jabril after Donald Trump as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to listen to the Most High God because that's whom I put my faith and my total trust upon. So God is still in control. He's still in control, and he rewards effort. Yes, I think what the great majority of us need to do, again, is look at what's happening, to look at our circumstances in this country, understand the climate that's happening today. I think we need to really do that. But again, Donald Trump, not the first to say that. He talks about cleaning up our high schools, holding people accountable, people that just want to do half the work. I think he's taking a page out of Mr. Joe Clark. Because just in case you all don't remember Joe Clark again, I'm going to play something else, another video about how he went and changed this high school, Eastside High, up in Patterson, New Jersey, back in 1989. But here's another thing they talked about with Joe Clark.
What was is no more. Go to your classrooms. Keep to the right. Pick papers up off of the floor. No hats. No ghetto boxes. No reading the newspapers in classrooms. No congregating. Carry books to classes. No fighting. No drugs. That was pervasive in this school. No assaults. No rapes. No guns. No knives. And if you're caught, something drastic is going to happen.
Now, is that not what Donald Trump said earlier? That if you violate a teacher, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but something was going to happen. Don't violate the classroom. Don't violate the teacher. Don't violate the ability for other people to learn. Now, Joe Clark just said that if you did those things, then something drastic was going to happen. And this is one of the things that did happen that should happen today.
Get this disgrace to erase out of here. You already threw this disgrace out once. What's it?
Some guy beating up Kid Bay.
Come on, old man. I've been waiting for this. Come on. Come on. Get this disgrace to erase out of here. You already threw this disgrace out once. What's he doing back, Mr. Wright? Someone must have let him in from the inside. I want every door in this school chained and locked. All of them. Yes, sir.
Now, I'm willing to bet you $100 that if Donald Trump stated that he needed that, change should need to be put on the doors of high schools, I'm willing to bet you that someone will make a connection with slavery, that change was on slaves. I mean, something would come out as stupid as that. But here you have in 1989, former principal, he passed away, and I think he passed away in 2018, 19 maybe, at the age of 82, Mr. Joe Clark, God rest his soul, for the wonderful job he did with those students up in the Patterson, New Jersey area. He should be applauded. But he put chains on the doors to keep the hoodlums out, to keep the drug dealers out, to keep those individuals out who wanted to prohibit other individuals from getting a higher education. I think we're kind of living in those times if you fast forward today. I grew up in an era where we didn't have no such thing as metal detectors and all this other foolishness. And I talked about earlier about the disrespect that we see amongst our young people who are basically retarding themselves into this crime or this life of crime and just really don't have an understanding. They just recently talked about a 17-year-old who went and shot and killed some individuals recently who have just thrown his life away. 17 years of age. And so you all think, see, when you have drastic things taking place, you need drastic measures. I'm willing to jettison my ideals overboard for the cause of mankind to make sure that we keep more standards and decorum, to keep a certain standard, to keep God out front. See, this country used to say, "In God we trust." I know it's still printed, but it becomes like throat knowledge. When information only enters the throat, but it never reaches the heart, that's America now. There was a time when they put the right hand over the heart and said, I pledge allegiance. Now, of course, I always would say, don't pledge allegiance to some flag. No, you pledge allegiance to the Most High God. But when you say it, mean it with sincerity. This is what we are. This is what we need today. I think that the day of trying to relegate someone thinking when we can see what's taking place in our society, I think is all thrown out the door now because people are not buying it. They're just not buying it. And I don't know how many times I have to say it, but these what I would demonize them as these idol worshipers. Yeah, this country also is a nation of idol worshipers. Because why I say that, they consistently use terms like icon, iconic, God, goddesses. They sitting on the seat of Sodom and Gomorrah for the actions that they do. Yeah, we can go into a lot of these concepts that have been too, underline the word too, T-O-O, not T-O, T-O-O, too much to the extreme, to where basically now God is it's like a thing of the past. It's in the background. God is in the background when God used to be at the forefront. Yeah, I understand we still have people showing up at church or at the synagogue, at the mosque, and these things like this. But how many of us are really trusting God? How many of us are really saying and doing the things that God would ask and have us to do? Not saying we're going to be perfect all the time. Not saying that we're going to hit the bullseye all the time. But when we're talking about mores and standards and so forth, man, that trumps everything. You know, this has nothing to do with your feelings. Truth has nothing to do with your feelings. But again, we've survived this invasive intruder that I would probably, call cretinism, retardation. We survive a lot of these concepts that's coming from the left side, and I still believe that we've pushed our way back towards the top, and we will get back towards the top. All of this thing, without reparations, because we've already done it anyway. If we get it, we get it. But again, there can be no white reparations before there are black reparations, and God is still in control. And as African Americans, we have trotted through some of the very toughest times ever known to mankind. And I know, as the song goes, a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. So whether we're paid reparations or not, I think that it's very important to remember that we are great survivors and stand on the shoulders of greater people than ourselves. But again, we have to have faith. That is what is required if we're going to be what we want to be. We have to think our way through this process and not be emotional about the process and not be hoodwinked or bamboozled, as they say. So again, I want to thank you all for joining me on another episode of Blac-Vocracy. Again, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, share, and notification button. Please tell a friend or tell a friend. And we're going to continue with these uploads. And I'm going to be right back at you. Don't forget, we got the other channel, the Replay Sports Show that we do on Sundays. And we'll be doing a little bit more uploads with that. But right now, we're talking about Blac-Vocracy. So, again, I want to thank y'all for joining me. And I'll be right back at y'all in a minute. Until then, peace and blessings. God bless. And make sure that y'all hit that subscribe, like, and share button. And I'll get back right back with y'all on a weekly basis. All right? Peace and love, y'all.